দর্শক, ল অ্যান্ড জাস্টিস প্রোগ্রামে আপনাদের সবাইকে স্বাগতম জানাচ্ছি। আমি টাইম টেলিভিশনের পক্ষ থেকে। আজকে আপনারা জানেন যে প্রতি সপ্তাহে আমরা এই ল অ্যান্ড জাস্টিস প্রোগ্রামে ইমিগ্রেশনের কারেন্ট বিষয় নিয়ে আলোচনা করি, সাম্প্রতিক বিষয়াবলী নিয়ে আলোচনা করা হয় এবং এই অনুষ্ঠানে অংশগ্রহণ করে থাকেন বিশিষ্ট ইমিগ্রেশন অ্যাটর্নি সেলিম রিজভী। মিস্টার সেলিম রিজভী দীর্ঘদিন থেকে এখানে প্র্যাকটিস করছেন। আমরা তার সাথে এখন কথা বলছি। মিস্টার রিজভী, ওয়েলকাম টু দ্য শো।
Thank you very much.
So, what is the latest?
What is the latest? There's so many news.
Okay.
Let's start with two important news items. One is about the executive action, and the other is about the DACA program. And you can see the contrast how federal courts are making their decision on immigration issues. One is very hopeful, one is a very good news, and that is about the
Let's talk about the good news.
Good news. And then we'll discuss about the bad news.
Yeah.
Well, not so good news because it's not completely bad news because that's not the end of it. So let's talk about the good news. Remember the DACA program?
Yes.
Very famous program. Lots of children got advantage of it and filed the application and were benefited. There was a court litigation which started in the district court first, and it was the state of Mississippi and also a couple of ICE agents. They brought a lawsuit saying that DACA should be stopped because they have if it is not stopped, their interests are going to be injured. I don't want to go into it because that becomes a very technical issue.
Yes.
But the bottom line is the district court threw their case out. Then they took the appeal and filed it with the Fifth Circuit Court. It is the same circuit court where the executive action appeal is pending and going to be discussed on April 17th. So the circuit court dismissed the appeal as well. So DACA applicants are safe. They can apply under the DACA program if they are qualified, they are eligible. They can get their work authorization, but unfortunately they cannot travel. Remember, you were part of that whole campaign where people wanted to see the DREAM Act coming through so that people can get their green card. All right. U.S. military is still very open on that, and they're providing this opportunity for people who are
illegal and
unfortunately who have no legal papers, immigration papers, but they want to accommodate them as long as the applicant meet their requirement. On the other hand, Judge Hannan, Andrew Hannan, Justice Hannan, who is sitting in Texas, he once again he dismissed the request by the U.S. Department of Justice in which they requested that the restraining order, which is holding off the executive action, President Obama's action, should be lifted, but he's not budging on it. So he's standing his ground. He said, I cannot do anything because my decision is absolutely correct and right on this issue. So now the next step is obviously the appeal has already been filed.
It's filed by White House?
Well, on April 17th we would come to know about it. Fifth Circuit is going to make a decision on it. But very strangely, they have opened the forum for discussion. I mean, for oral discussion. In most of the cases, what they do is when they receive the appeal, they will make the decision on papers. So they don't allow oral argument. But I think perhaps is the nature and scope of this case that they wanted to hear both sides orally. So both sides' attorney are going to.
So the both sides will be in front of the judge and
in front of the judge
and
make
the argument oral or
before
oral
the circuit
argument.
judge. Yes, it's going to be oral argument. So it's very interesting to see how they are going to.
So government will
matter.
send their people.
Absolutely.
And the opposition,
well,
the government,
26,
the governor also.
26 states, obviously. They're part of it. That's very interesting to see.
What do you think? If say about it's negative, then what?
Well, then further appellate review of it. It can also go to the Supreme Court because this is a very important issue. But time is of the essence. The most important thing is to wrap up the whole thing.
Because the
it has been a couple of months. I mean, it started in February, and then there was a hold on it. Obviously, Republicans' party strategy is to gain as much as time possible.
Yes.
Because now we have already entered into the presidential
Race.
election
Yeah.
arena, and you know, and some of the people are wondering whether the Republican Party is going to do something about it. You know, Ted Turner has said something about it. Jeb Bush
Yes.
has taken different position, and now Rand Paul, the senator from Kentucky, he has announced his presidential bid.
Bid, yeah.
Our neighbor Governor Christie is still waiting.
Also, he's still
You know,
waiting.
obviously, yeah.
yeah, thing
what
thing
is your
not-
opinion about
Chris
Chris Christie? Yeah.
I think he's trying to understand the situation, and
Yeah.
then if he feel that the whole thing is favorable,
Yeah.
then he will jump on it.
Yeah.
And he's trying to catch Republican as well as the Democrat votes, because you
Yeah.
remember when the last year when it was a devastated
Yeah.
you know, hurricane,
Yeah.
and he bring President Obama there, which
Right.
the
Right.
Republican
That is the best.
they
Yeah.
criticize him. You know,
Absolutely,
he was
yeah.
with them.
He was criticized
Uh,
because of his closeness
Yeah, closeness with Obama.
with Obama.
But
yeah.
I think the reason he did it, because he thought maybe he can use it to upcoming.
I think you're absolutely
Yeah.
right, and also at the same time, I think his immigration views are not very well known, but we have seen, for instance, the DREAM Act. He has created this concession for students and providing them
Yeah.
in-state tuition rate, which is great.
Yeah,
So that is something very favorable. But at the same time, he was part of 26 states which are opposing President
Yeah.
Obama's executive action. So
But
his
also
position
he-
is not very clear.
Yeah, but you have to understand he is from New Jersey, and New
Yeah.
Jersey is dominated by, you know, I mean,
Immigrants,
heavily
absolutely. Yeah.
democratic state.
Yeah.
So he has to understand that he got the momentum from his state as well.
Right.
You know, and in order to do it, he I don't think that he will be like any other
Right. Yeah.
Republican. You know.
And also our history, political history, tell us that extreme position
is not good for.
not good for the country. It's
Yeah.
not good for the candidate.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
As long
basically-
as you have a very central course of action,
yeah,
where you
the
want to
last
bring-
two election,
yeah,
the even Republican Party, they realized that
Yeah,
they need
yeah.
the support from the
Yeah.
ethnic minority community as well. Without their vote,
yeah.
they can succeed.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, and also there is awareness even on the immigration issue, and Republican Party is realizing that they have to get the support of immigrants.
Yeah.
You know, without their support, they cannot succeed.
No, you remember right after the election night, the election second term, Obama won, he owned second term.
Right.
Then all the political, you know, analysts and gurus,
Yeah.
they always talk about the Republican fault, that okay, they have to attract the
Yeah, right.
the immigrant voters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without the immigration,
Yeah.
they will not succeed.
Right.
Only Republican vote
Hmm.
is not enough to.
You are absolutely right. And Senator Rubio, we
Yeah.
mentioned about him
yeah.
in our last show. He came forward and he said, "Look, without the help of Latino voters,
No one. Can succeed.
anyone from Republican Party cannot be the president of this country." All right. So
See,
in order to
the
achieve
whole
that,
immigration issue, even the primetime speaker,
Right.
last Democratic Party
Yeah.
convention,
yeah,
they bring a guy from Austin, Texas. He was the mayor of
right, right,
Austin mayor. His mother was illegal.
mm,
His grandmother is still alive. His mother died,
right,
and he born, in Texas.
yeah,
His mother was illegal,
right,
and the reason Democratic Party bring him to
mm.
show the the Latino voters, look.
Yeah, we are
you
so
know.
passionate about this issue, you know.
Yeah.
And in our files and ranks, we have people
Yeah.
who have the similar story.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a great way of connecting with the people, but you know, if it is done just to avail that opportunity,
Yeah.
then you know there should be some sentimental value to
Yeah.
it as well. But sometimes, you know, politicians have very their own agendas and they try to do things in their own way. But as long as people are getting
Yeah, I'm
benefited
kind of
by it, I think
confused
it's-
whether this mayor was from which city, but
Right.
he is from Texas, in
Right.
either Santo Domingo,
Hmm.
no Santo Domingo, I
Austin?
think Texas, Austin,
yeah,
or somewhere, you know.
I heard about the story, but I
Yeah.
did not know.
No, I was
where
at the
person was.
convention.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
heard the live speech.
Right.
It was amazing. You know, his
Mm.
wife was there, his brother was
Yeah.
there. So it was great. So what is the new thing coming up?
Well, the new thing is, I mean, obviously H-1B, we discussed about H-1B
last time. Yeah.
And Immigration Service has received more than enough applications. So they're saying if people will file H-1B now, new applications. And by the way, I want to draw that distinction here. It's very important. I don't want to convey a wrong impression that H-1B passage is closed. For new applications, if you file a new application, you haven't filed an application before, obviously that is subject to this 65,000 visa ceiling. But let's say somebody is filing for the extension of H-1B. If I'm on H-1B and I'm filing for the extension, then I don't have to queue up. I don't have to wait for the number because the visas are available. So you can file the application for an extension. For new applicants, this 65,000 lottery is very, very important. So in other words, the Immigration Service is saying that we have received enough applications, and the people who has ended up filing the application on April 1st and perhaps on April 2nd, they've been, perhaps they're part of it. And then the lottery would be picked up, and then they're going to announce how many application in total they received, and applicants will start receiving notices from the Immigration Services. So that will come very soon. And there's another.
What is the situation of people applied CSS, LULAC, and all this?
Yeah, those are now, wow. You're taking me back to 2 decades.
Yeah, 2 decades. Yeah. What
Well,
is the
CSS
situation?
LULAC cases, some people are trying to keep them alive in certain ways. But to be very honest, there were some good applications too. I'm not saying that CSS and LULAC cases, because there is a overall impression about CSS and LULAC cases. Everyone who filed the application was a fraudulent application. No, there were thousands of people.
So because the hundreds of thousands of application was, at that time there was no computerized system. Nothing.
Right. Yeah.
So where the files are?
Well, that is stored in the archive of Immigration Service.
Okay.
And sometime I received telephone call from overseas, and people ask me, well, we applied for CS and LULAC case, we filed the appeal, we do not know whether the appeal is pending or not. There is a simple way of handling that situation. If somebody wants to get the information from the Immigration Service, as a journalist, that you can file an application which is called FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. It's a very simple application. People don't need a lawyer to file the application.
No, they don't need it.
Simple 2-page application. They have to fill out the information, get it notarized, sign, send it to the Immigration Service, and this way people can get the whole record. But if they want to get the case analyzed, then obviously they need a lawyer. A good lawyer can tell them whether they have any life left.
So say about someone applied for CSS 20 years ago, right? And now still he don't know where the application is.
Well, I would say he's at the end of the rope. The person who applied 20 years ago, if he did not hear anything from Immigration Service, or he did not pursue it, or he knew that his case has no life left, I don't think he will be able to get anything from it. But again, I have seen many cases where people filed motion to reopen and the cases were approved. Those were 81 cases, people who came without inspection. In certain cases, people came with inspection. And also it depends how many times the person has taken.
Let me take a small break and we'll come back.
Sure, absolutely.
দর্শক, আমরা একটা ছোট্ট বিরতিতে যাচ্ছি, বিরতির পরে ফিরবো। থাকুন টাইম টেলিভিশনের সাথেই।
For the best threading, waxing, facial, color, haircuts, henna, special bridal and party makeup, and more, come to Tenzin Salon, corner of Broadway and 72nd Street in Jackson Heights.
SNS অ্যাকাউন্টিং অ্যান্ড জেনারেল সার্ভিসেস আমাদের রয়েছে ইনকাম ট্যাক্স, অ্যাকাউন্টিং, ইমিগ্রেশন সার্ভিসেস, ট্রান্সলেশন অ্যান্ড নোটারি সুবিধা। যোগাযোগ করুন MA কাইয়ুম, 3542 31st স্ট্রিট, লং আইল্যান্ড সিটি, নিউ ইয়র্ক 11106। ফোন 718-361-5883, 718-685-2010। Fax 718-361-6071. SNS Accounting and General Services. Trust us, we serve you better.
দর্শক, লাইভ ল অ্যান্ড জাস্টিস প্রোগ্রামে আপনাদের সবাইকে আবার স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। আমাদের সাথে আছেন ইমিগ্রেশন অ্যাটর্নি সেলিম রিজভী। তো আমরা তার সাথে কথা বলছিলাম। মিস্টার রিজভী, সো লেটস টক অ্যাবাউট দি কন্ডিশনাল গ্রিন কার্ড।
Right.
What is conditional green card?
Well, conditional green card refers to a situation where a person has applied on the basis of a marriage to a U.S. citizen. And if the marriage is less than 2 years old, the person will be given a conditional green card. Remember, there has been a lot of discussion about the Marriage Fraud Act. And the Marriage Fraud Act was introduced, and under the Marriage Fraud Act, the policymaker thought that it's a good idea
To start a conditional
to start with a conditional status, all right? Because as we know, not all marriages are kosher marriages. And sometimes people get married because they just want to get a permanent residency in this country. So in order to weed out bad cases, there's a two-tier process. First of all, the applicant will get a green card. It's a green card, no doubt about that. And he has all the privileges of a green card, but the duration is short, it's for 2 years. Only if the marriage was less than 2 years old. Let's say Mr. X gets married today, and he waits and waits for whatever reason, and he filed the application after, let's say, 18 months. And then his green card gets approved after the second anniversary of his marriage. So that will be a permanent card. But if the marriage was less than 2 years old at the time of interview, or at the time of arriving at the airport, because there are two different processes through which people can get their green card. Either they are outside the country and they go for the interview before the consular officer, and consular officer will approve the case. But at the time when the consular officer approves the case, that is not the date on which they will calculate the date. Rather, the date would be when the person will come at the airport and hand over that famous envelope to the immigration service, right? That would be the date when the person becomes a green card holder. And if the adjustment of status process is done, in other words, if the person is here and the wife is a U.S. citizen who apply for, or husband is a U.S. citizen, vice versa. And after an interview, immigration service approves the case, which is called adjustment of status case. He or she will get the green card on that particular date, and that is the date of starting this time period. So as long as that 2 years period is calculated correctly, people should not have any problem. So let's say if somebody has a conditional status because the marriage was less than 2 years old, they are under the obligation to file an application which is called removal of conditional status application.
Okay.
All right.
So after 2 years, they have to file admission.
The immigration service allow them to file the application within 90 days of the expiration
of the 2 years
of the 2
term.
years green card. All right.
Okay.
So
3 months. 3 months.
3 months. They have that 3 months period within which they have to file the application,
Okay.
and it requires lots of documentation because immigration service want to make sure that the
That
person
is-
has been living, both parties have been living together,
Yes.
together as husband and wife.
Yes.
So they need a copy of the lease. If they were fortunate enough
bank account.
to buy their own home, then they can send a copy of their deed, bank account, utility bill,
Yeah.
and also affidavits
tax
from
return.
affidavits from family, friends, and family members who can testify, who
Yes.
can attest to the fact that the marriage is a bona fide marriage.
Yes.
You know, and I generally advise my client to get these affidavits by individual who really know them
Mhm.
well, and who can write their own affidavits.
Yeah.
Because if you're
American
using a boilerplate affidavit, which says, well, to whom it may concern,
citizen. Yeah.
and they say, well, I have known him for the last 20 years. He's a good guy. If that general language is not good enough. I have seen people.
if say about if the aunt or uncle
Yeah,
write the letter, this the
Sure.
I am letting you know that my niece she got married so and so, and they are
Yeah.
living together. They are
Yeah.
good. This guy is a good guy.
yeah,
There is a good husband and wife.
absolutely, yeah.
This is more
In essence,
effective.
this is more effective because it's your own language. You're telling
Yeah.
the immigration
And
service
you
that
don't have to follow the grammar and all this thing.
No,
You can
no, no.
write just exactly
Yeah.
like your mouth.
Yeah, especially when,
Yeah.
when they write those standard letters,
Yeah.
one letter is prepared and everyone is signing the same letter. you
Yeah,
know,
they
that's-
got confused, and
Yeah.
also they're suspicious. Okay, it's like
that's
Yeah.
that's not a good policy. I mean, the
Yeah.
lawyer can help to create a good affidavit as long as the facts are there. I mean, I cannot make up the story,
Mhm.
but if somebody says, well, my English is not that great, I just
Okay,
want
this
to
is
make sure that
this is the story. It's okay.
this is the story,
Yeah.
and write
Please
it
write
up.
it.
My office can write
Yeah.
write it up, and as long as the facts are there and the information is correct, then the AFIN can sign it and
So
we
let
can
me
use
ask you
it.
another question.
Sure.
How about there is a lot of marriage I found
Yeah,
within 2 years.
right.
It get
Falls through the cracks.
Yeah, crack, and then might be they are fighting. They
Yeah.
are not living together,
Right.
but
In
sometimes-
real life, it happens.
Yeah, real life it's happened, but sometimes the groom or bride, they are not willing to notify to the immigration that
Right.
okay, our marriage is
Yeah. Yeah,
in a shaky
yeah,
situation.
yeah.
So what would be?
Yeah. Well, there could be different scenarios. All right. The simplest is when the divorce has already taken place. All
Mhm.
right. They live together.
but one thing,
Sure.
if say about the wife,
Mm,
if she send a letter to the immigration, or husband send a letter to the
Yeah.
immigration
mm.
that we are not living together,
Right.
right?
Mm.
Within 2 years,
Right.
period.
Right.
Then what could happen?
Well, okay. The most important thing is to file the application. There are two ways of filing the application. Either both of them, if they're living together, they will sign the application saying we've been living for the last 2
Mhm.
years, we are good husband and wife, we share life
Yeah,
together,
we love each
and
other.
we love each other, whatever. And this supporting documentation, they send it and it goes through. Okay.
Mhm.
And if all the documentation are submitted as per the requirement, and immigration officer, review the application and comes to a conclusion that this is a good case, they will
Mhm.
approve the case without any further interview.
Any further interview?
Okay. But let's say if they are not living together, they are separated, or there is a divorce. So we'll talk about these two different situations.
Mhm.
But even in that situation where the people are separated or when there is a divorce,
Mhm.
the applicant who has to get his permanent residency
Mhm.
has to file the application, even though the other partner is not signing it because they are not living together, or husband or wife say, look, I don't want to be part of it, go ahead and file on your own.
Mhm.
Even that, the applicant must file the application within that 3 months period.
Time.
All right?
Okay.
Yes, the other part, there is no signature of the other party. Then he has to substantiate with other documentation. If there is a separation and they are contemplating a divorce, then he can write an affidavit by saying that we are separated
Yeah.
and there's a divorce pending at the moment.
Mhm.
Then immigration service will give him a little bit more time until the divorce is completed.
Okay.
If divorce has already taken place,
Mhm.
then the person will be filing the divorce papers, divorce judgment, and then he will be signing the paper on his own and other supporting documentation.
Mhm.
And the case should be approved as long as the real key is to establish that the marriage is a good faith marriage. It was a
Okay.
genuine marriage. If there was a fraud in marriage, then forget about it. Then it's,
So if say about the divorce has been taken place,
yeah,
and after 2 years, after say about within 2 years, the case has been started, divorce case, and
Right.
then it's take about 3 years.
right.
So with these 3 years, he can
Well,
continue his residency.
Yeah. Well, the trick would be to get the divorce proceeding completed as soon as possible. It doesn't take
Okay.
that long, especially when the other party is not contesting it. For
Okay.
instance, in New York, City,
Mhm.
and in some other jurisdiction close by.
So if the divorce has been taken place, the
Then
judge
fine.
gave the
I mean,
order.
sometimes people come to me and they're horrified.
Mhm.
They said, "My goodness, my husband or my wife have started a divorce proceeding, and I'm a conditional status. Next month I want to file the application to remove the conditional status.
Mhm.
Now, what's going to happen? Because once this divorce is done, it looks like that's the end of my
Green
my
card.
green card."
Yes.
And I try to calm down my client and say, well, that's not the end of the world.
Mhm.
First of all, I want to make sure that this is a good marriage.
Mhm.
If it was a good marriage, and now the marriage is ending into a divorce, that's not the end of the world. We can substantiate your case with supporting
okay.
documentation and get it done. So in other words, if the marriage was a good marriage, the relationship has completely collapsed, and there is a divorce, that's the best possible option.
Okay.
Okay, so don't stop the divorce proceeding, because that's not going to be helpful. This is what I tell my client.
Thank you so